Hello, everyone. Welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the Marvel Snap Zone podcast. What we have today for you is Galactus's return. This Galactus deck, I've played it, is sick. It's the best pure Galactus deck since his heyday. Is it as good as the meta Galactus when it took over? No, that's absurd. Is it as good as Galactus was before that when it was just a regular good deck that you can climb with? Oh yeah, and everyone who's tried it, ask Marvel Snap Decks on Twitter, ask the creator, ask anyone who's tried this. This deck is sick. It's also not the deck on the screen, obviously. That's D Money's Strong Guy meta deck. We'll talk about that in a second. But before we get to the Galactus deck, which is going to be our first deck for the day, I'd like you to hit subscribe, like, comment, ring that notification bell. You have to do these things? Of course not. But it's free and it really helps us out. If you're willing to help us out, what we give to you in return is one, we do the biggest giveaway in Marvel Snap. Every single month, we give away way more season pass than everybody, and we always have some kind of really cool grand prize. This month, we gave away the Death Becomes Her bundle. It's always something cool. So if you're interested in that, make sure you're subbed. We also find proven decks that hit infinite, decks that get infinity tickets, decks that have super high win rates. And we find these decks so that we can help you take advantage of being ahead of the meta, so that you can also achieve success with these decks. We're a smaller channel still, so we are able to find you these decks, these information, before the larger content creators have a chance to get there. So please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss those. The final reason to sub, I know all the top content creators. I'm in the creator program. I write for Snap Zone. I do the podcast, so on and so forth. So I asked everyone what their best tips were to improve in Marvel Snap. Every other day, 7 days a week, we are releasing a short that has a tip from a Marvel Snap Pro player. So you absolutely don't want to miss that either. Let's talk Galactus. This deck looks almost exactly like an old Galactus deck, right? What it's basically doing is running Professor X instead of Spider-Man. And spoiler, it still really works well. I didn't think it was, I'll be completely honest with you, I did not expect it to work. So you have, ideally, turn 1 Yondu into a turn 2 Yellow Jacket Madam Warlock. This should hopefully get you drawing. You want to stack up a lane as much as possible. At that point, you have a choice. You can drop Daredevil on 3 to Wave on 4, or Electro on 4. That tends to work reasonably well. You can also just Electro right there on turn 3, or Wave right there on turn 3. It's going to change the play lines. We'll talk about whether you're Electro or Wave on 3 or 4 and why. America Chavez is your consistency piece here. If you've got Daredevil out, if you're Galactusing on 5, you can almost always do so safely. You're going to get that Galactus off. Now, at that point, once you've played Galactus, your general job is to snap, right? You want them to go, uh-oh, does he have something I can't answer? A lot of the time, they're going to run, right? Like, once you get your Galactus off, before you play him, you snap. A lot of the time, they're going to get to that turn 6, Galactus is going to go off, and the opponent is just out. If they stay in, they're staying in because they have Shang-Chi. What do you do then? Well, you drop Hobgoblin. You play your Hobgoblin at that point. That -8 will usually beat whatever they have to play with Shang-Chi, because you are fundamentally at 15 power in that lane that is unshankable. It works fantastically. That is your general play as well if you're going to turn 5 Galactus. Turn 4 Galactus. If you wave into a turn 4 Galactus, you can either Hobgoblin to weaken them in a lane so that you can more easily go over the top. You can Professor X and say, I don't think you can get 10 here in one lane. Learn to recognize what deck they're playing. A lot of decks right now are running on turn 5 a card like Legion or MODOK. You can go right over the top of them. 10 power is enough to beat that. If your opponent's playing Devil Dinosaur, it's a Thanos deck, then you want to pick a different plan. And to me, that different plan is usually pass on turn 5. If they play something big then, they're going to win initiative. If they win initiative, you drop your null, or null and death, which is often the case, and you go right over the top of them, completely protected from Shang-Chi. That makes sense? So you draw into Galactus, right? However you do it. Turn 3, you Electro. That means you're Hobgobbling an empty lane, and then playing Galactus. Now they have to beat 15 in that lane on turn 5 to stop that Galactus. That is play pattern 1. Play pattern 2, wave into Galactus, and at that point, you're either Hobgobbling, Professor X, or passing, depending on your read of the game. Again, so far so good. Then you Null or Death. Play pattern number 3 is that you wave on turn 4. Works the same way. If you're waving on turn 4, you're snapping before you Galactus, right? If you're Electroing and you don't have a Hobgoblin, now you really that Daredevil on turn 4 so you can ensure your Galactus is a good one, and that works. Also, like, Yondu isn't incredible. It's really good to make sure that death ends up free, but the real reason I love Yondu in this deck is Yondu is really cheap information in this deck. Sometimes Yondu hits Shang-Chi, right? And you know you can go to town. But Yondu tells you what kind of deck they're playing, which tells you what you want to be doing on turn 5 or turn 6. If you see that they're playing, if you hit a Darkhawk, you know that they're not going to be able to go over the top of you to stop Galactus, so they're going to have to stack multiple cards there. That's a really good chance to Professor X to win that lane, or Hobgoblin being too much to take them out. But you know they're running Shang, so you want to be extra careful of a potential Null or Death. This deck works. This is an extremely high cube rate deck. This works, I mean, not exactly as well as original Galactus, right? It lost the Spider-Man combo as much as anything else, but this deck just works. It is a crazy strong deck. Daredevil is so good right now. One of the very few cards that can truly stop you is a priority Spider-Man, right? It's one of the few things in the meta that really mess you up outside of just them getting more power than your Galactus. Daredevil says no problem. And beautifully, let's say that none of that is working, right? Your Galactus doesn't go off, you're probably going to lose, right? But you can still potentially Professor X the lane, win a lane, and steal another lane with Hobgoblin and your lower cost cards, or America Chavez. These are ways you can win games of Marvel Snap that are perfectly within your means. And you've got Adam Warlock, you've got America Chavez, you've got the best chance to draw Galactus in the game. You need to try this deck. If you are an old Galactus stan who misses their fix and are trying to make it work with Thanos, I think Thanos is the best way to do it because Thanos doesn't need Galactus. But if you're looking to play Galactus, not a Thanos list that also has Galactus, this is the way to do it. All right, our second deck, this has a 63% win rate and it's silly. This is the first time I've seen MODOK work outside of a strict discard list. This is the only time Strong Guy works. It is the least played card in the game outside of this list. And the deck just works. It wants to get Morbius or Zabu out early, right? And then it wants to play Dakin. Once it plays Dakin, it wants to go into Strong Guy, into something like Captain Marvel, and if it doesn't have Swarm in hand, it spends its last turn playing MODOK. Your Morbius is now 10, your Strong Guy is now 10. Your Dakin is now 8. You've dropped all that power that is, to that point, Shang-Chi proof at the very end of the game. You can also conceivably get a Swarm out early, and on turn 5, MODOK away the hand with the Swarms. Now on turn 6, you have America Chavez and 2 Swarms to play, along with, again, a giant Strong Guy, whatever else. If Colleen gets stuck in hand and you can get the Swarms out, you can almost always use Colleen to guarantee yourself an empty hand, depending on, obviously, board space. Killmonger helps make sure you have board space. It gives you a backup plan to the backup plan. MODOK is plan A, Colleen is plan B, to discarding Dak and Shard. And you, of course, have the escape valve of Shang-Chi. This deck is really fun and really good. D-Money is a phenomenal deck builder. Everyone knows D-Money. He's won major tournaments. He's one of the major streamers that goes to things like Creator Clash. But this was posted on his YouTube, and his YouTube is still smaller for whatever reason. So if you want a really fun deck, and that's got like a 60% win rate, this isn't a bad deck by any means. I don't think it's tier 1, but this is a good, super fun deck that you can win games of Marvel Snap with. It plays so much more smoothly than it looks. Everything curves out beautifully in this deck. Check it out. You're not going to be disappointed. All right, those are our 2 decks for this portion of today. As always, there are more decks coming. Please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out. Again, we'd really appreciate it. We hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.